Hey, everybody. Just a little heads up that we're trying something new here on the Power Company podcast. It's what Nate and I are calling the board meetings, and this is the first recording that we did for these board meetings. This isn't going to take the place of the conversations that you've grown to expect. Those will still be coming out monthly. We're just going to try to put these out in between. So this first one is a bit clumsy, and we've streamlined it since then. So bear with us if we're rambling a little, but yeah, on with the show.
Maybe don't know. Maybe don't.
This time. Power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton.
And I'm Nathan Drolet.
And together we form Voltron. You know how long I've been waiting to say that? I want to say it at every damn workshop we do.
I believe it.
So this is episode who knows what, because I don't know when we're going to put it out, but this is the first installment of the board meeting. That's what we've decided on, right?
Yeah.
The board meeting.
Yeah, the board meeting.
Sweet. So Nate and I have been out on the road doing these workshops, and it's been amazing, and people have really been responding. I don't know. I'm super psyched. How are you feeling about it?
I've been amped with it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Get close on that mic so I don't have to turn you up and hear the refrigerator and the crazy-ass dog next door.
How about this? Is better?
That's better.
All right.
Mouth on the microphone. That's what rappers like to do, so.
Perfect. I'll just be mouth breathing over here this whole time.
No mouth breathing. None of that. We have female listeners who are going to get excited. And some male listeners will get excited too. But okay. Yeah, the workshops have been great. So thanks to all of you guys who came out. We filled up most of the spots in most of the cities. So that's been pretty damn cool. And all the gyms want us back, which I think is even cooler.
For sure.
Yeah. Anything special you've gotten from any of these, or learned, or been surprised by?
I don't know. They've all been pretty good. Working with the team kids, and especially the coaches, when we had the coaches clinic, was a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's probably the most surprising moment for me. Was I wasn't sure what to think going into that.
Yeah.
But we went in and it was great, and we definitely want to do it again. Like we did a workshop for the coaches, the same as we were going to give to their team kids the next day, and just kind of ran the coaches through it, and the coaches picked up on it all really fast and then helped us coach the kids, which was really cool. And we got to, work with the coaches on the dialogue that they were using and how to frame questions for the kids or frame, their conversations with the kids, which was really cool.
Yeah, no, it was great. And plus, it was so fun to see how they were interpreting the information, because it wasn't just them wanting information for themselves, which they obviously did as well, but also so that they could pass it on to kids. So it was interesting because they wanted both sides, like the questions they would ask and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool to see that they were excited to learn as climbers as well as coaches, because I definitely think there's a distinction there. I have to draw a line between my coaching and my climbing, and I have to think differently when I'm working with someone else versus how I coach myself.
Oh, for sure.
So I think it was cool to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was really surprised how much fun it was to work with the kids, because I wasn't sure how that was going to be. I don't want to deal with parents. That's my number one desire in this whole coaching thing, is to not work with parents.
Yeah, I think that was maybe the best thing about these clinics, is that it was just the kids and the coaches.
Yeah. I don't think parents want me working with them either. But I can do it in a very limited role, and I quite enjoy it in that case. So this was a ton of fun. And big shout out to Brad Hilbert, who had us out to Triangle Rock Club, and he did a lot of the legwork and did all of the work with the parents, and brought some great team kids out for us to work with. So
yeah,
and big thanks to him. Yeah, and all the coaches.
All the coaches, for sure.
Yep. Okay, let's tell them about this thing, this board meeting thing. What the hell is it we're doing here? We basically Nate and I want to have conversations about things that we think are important for you guys to hear. And, this whole thing has been conversational, so we want to keep it that way. And we want to pick a topic, and oftentimes we'll probably do lists, top 3 things we've learned from blah, 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 whatever that might be. And today we're going to talk about the top 3 things we've done that have positively influenced our own climbing, right?
Yeah.
This is Nate's topic, so I'm making sure I got this right.
Yes, that is what we're going with.
All right. And just a quick update here on the podcast, and I'll tell you more about this later, but I just want to put this little bug in your ears. We are working on some ways for you guys to help out. We've got lots of exciting things happening. I've got like 7,000 interviews in the can now, maybe closer to 12, but
12,000.
Yeah, 12,000 exactly. In the can, ready to go with people like Christian Bale, if he were Jonathan Siegrist. People exactly like that. So I've got a bunch waiting to come out for you guys, and we've got some ways for you to help coming up. So anyway, let's get into this thing, because I know that's what you want to do. And I do too. And I'm done with my coffee here. And you can tell I've had a lot of coffee because Nate's making us drink coffee out of these little tiny ass cups.
They're adorable.
And, yeah, they are quite adorable. But I end up drinking about 4 times more coffee than I normally would because they're out of little cups and I drink them in 2 drinks. And it's 8 o'clock at night. So I may never get to bed. So, all right. Top 3 things that have influenced our own climbing. How about you go first?
All right. I'm going chronological with these. The first one was back in 2009. And
you remember back that far? I don't remember back that far.
So that's why I have 8A.
True.
Yeah. Numbers, Chris. So beginning of that year, I was climbing V7 or so. And I just climbed like an absolute sloth. I locked off absolutely everything. And
are you making fun of me?
Yes, very much. Okay. I was way worse than you. No, it's terrible. I felt like I could either lock off to a move or I would never be able to reach the move. I would have to all points off dyno or lock off. I had no in-between ground. And it started to become a huge issue. I was really inconsistent with my climbing. And at that time, so it was like V7, maybe I think 12D as well. And about that time, I picked up Dave McLeod's 9 out of 10 Climbers.
Oh, yeah, great book.
I know. Still to this day, I think one of the best books on training.
For sure.
And it's funny, it's the first book in my life. I opened it up, started reading, and I can even remember what it said, but this was the first time in my life I set the book down, went over, grabbed a highlighter, and came back and highlighted the paragraph.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. I don't read. I never read much before.
I highlight with Sharpies. Black Sharpies, preferably.
I disagree with this. Boom, taking it out.
I think he's talking about me here, so we'll just blank this part out.
Yeah. No, and so I read through that book, and I felt like it gave me a lens to look at climbing training through. So from then on, anytime I would look at some sort of training plan or read other books, this gave me a reference point to see that with.
Yep.
And yeah, there were a couple, I meed had tons of takeaways. Actually, one of the coolest things about that book is a little bit of an aside before getting to the actual thing here. So I went through everything that I thought was speaking directly to me, I highlighted. And so after that, every year for the next 4 years, I ended up rereading the book. And what was crazy was every year, I'd go through and I'd see the highlighted sections. I'd be like, I don't even understand why I highlighted this, because I just spent the last 2 years focusing on it. So now it was so ingrained. Or I would flip through, and there's be these huge gaps where nothing had been highlighted. I'm like, how did I miss this? This is gold right here in the middle. But it was just, things didn't apply to me at that time. Or there was the third thing, and it was something that was highlighted, and I had kept avoiding it.
Yeah.
That's where I pulled out the black highlighter.
Yep.
I've seen this 6
that part
times.
doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, footwork drills? No, thank you. So, Red Knight at 10 climbers, and he talks a lot about how you need to use momentum. And I knew that was a limiting factor. And so I decided I was just going to train momentum nonstop. So that's what I did. I made up all my own makeup boulders to where they were the biggest moves that I could reach. So they were beyond my lock off, but they were too bad of holds to just jump to. And eventually I got really good at it. And now all I do is climb with momentum.
Mm-hmm.
I actually recently had to relearn how to climb statically. But beginning of that year, I was climbing 12C or 12D and V7. And by the end of the next year, I had climbed 6 V10s and 13D.
Sick.
So it was that
Dave
for me.
McLeod gets half your 8A points.
Exactly. He gets all the 8A points. Yeah. So for me, that was one of the biggest things, was really practicing momentum, which was all spurred on by reading 9 out of 10 climbers.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe I should go back and reread 9 out of 10 climbers.
I would, but yeah, I loaned it to someone.
Yours is all black now.
Yeah, exactly. I just rip pages out when I don't agree with them. All right, so what do you got as number one?
All right, my number one was I got honest with myself about my strengths and weaknesses, and specifically...
Your pinkies?
Well, that's my strength, that I don't use my pinkies, that I don't need those things. No, seriously, the thing I had to really get honest with myself about was something that I thought was my biggest strength. I had been told for years that I was a pretty climber and that I looked good climbing and that I had great technique. You know? So I really had to be brutally honest and say, okay, you have a really good technique in a very limited range.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to realize if I took the entire spectrum of technique into account, I had really horrible technique, you know, because I didn't have 3/4 of the skills I needed to be a better climber.
For sure. You mastered such a small sector.
Yep. Yeah. The tiny little like Red River drop knee twisty technique. That was me.
Hang on forever.
You know, yeah, that was all I could do. You know, so I really had to get honest with myself about that. And then that led to, you know, really looking at my other weaknesses as that got better and started to get shored up a little bit. I was able to really reflect back on what else do I need. And it got easier and easier, as it does, to look at your weaknesses. After you start attacking the big ones, the little ones are much easier. You don't have to Sharpie the book out nearly as much.
For sure. And also you realize how much of a benefit you get.
Yeah, for sure. It's a huge benefit when you can be honest with yourself. And it hurts. You know, it hurts, especially when you've heard people tell you for years that that's what you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to go, okay, all you people are stupid.
Well, it's easy too. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a bad style, but it becomes an issue when you start to take pride in one thing and you almost start to use it as a crutch.
Oh, for sure.
I know I've definitely had that with several things in the past.
Yeah, there are a lot of times I still want to make a move and I have to catch myself. I want to make a move pretty and graceful, and it's just not going to be. You know, it's going to be a thuggy ass, you know, growling, screaming kind of move, and I need to be okay with that, as opposed to I need to find the drop knee that makes it pretty, or I go, oh, that move is stupid, you know, and walk away.
Oh yeah, no, that's I had a very similar issue, and thankfully I climb at TBA, Tennessee Bouldering Authority in Chattanooga a lot, and man, just a bunch of animals that climb in there. Like guys are all so strong, and I'd always try and beta things down, which a lot of times works, but at a certain point, you know, I'd be trying 15 different methods, and one of the guys I'd be training with would just look at me and be like, dude, just try hard.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's like, you know, sometimes you just got to knuckle down and huck meat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's my number one. I got honest with myself.
What was there something that caused that?
Caused me to have to get honest with myself?
Yeah. Was there just a roadblock or?
Really, it was just kind of I hit a plateau. Like I had maxed out what I was doing. And it all started with, I was a trad climber. I basically quit climbing for a while because I was so disenchanted with running out of trad climbs in the red for the most part. And I thought bolts were incredibly ethically stupid. And then I came back to climbing, rediscovered the red. So I had to start rethinking my motivation for climbing to begin with. And so that started me on that path. But then I'm kind of maxed out with my endurance training because that's kind of where I started. So once I maxed out on that, I had to go, okay, what do I do now? I'm not going to get any better with this, so I have to change things.
Can't shake out on jugs any longer than you already were.
I know.
So,
Yeah, I was shaking out on every damn hold. It didn't matter what the hold was. I could shake out my way up every route I climbed. So,
yeah.
Because if it had a crux, I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So my number 2.
Numero dos.
Yes. So this was in 2014. So this wasn't that long. 2014 or 2013. I don't really remember that well. So I was working at an Amazon fulfillment center as a picker.
Oh, yeah.
I was working 50-hour weeks. So I was working 5 10s a week. And then during the winter, I was working 5 12-hour night shifts a week.
Oh, my God.
So that year...
sounds horrible.
Yeah. And as a picker, you walk in a 10-hour shift, typically, 10 to 14 miles, something like that, depending on what it is. But there's a lot of bending down, a lot of reaching up super high, just a lot of movement.
Can't you get just like a motorized wheelchair or something?
That'd be amazing.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
Mopeds.
No, because then you'd be sitting 10 hours a day. I don't know if that's any better
It's
than
definitely
walking 10
not.
hours a day.
Segways, dude.
Segways, yes. That wouldn't be terrifying. Segways and conveyor belts. So I was working a ton, and man, I just, I'd get back from work and I'd just be exhausted when I get to the gym. Come back, and I had a really short window. So I'd get off of work, I think about 6:30. When I was driving to the gym, I would be eating dinner on the drive to the gym.
I swear I thought you were going to say eating donuts.
Eating donuts. Oh,
As soon as D came out of your mouth, I was like,
Donuts.
donuts, yes.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry. You're on your way to the gym eating donuts for dinner.
Yes, I'd eat donuts for dinner. A couple kolaches.
I don't even know what a kolache is. Sounds Polish.
It's well done.
Sweet.
Yeah, maybe some pierogies to top it off. So, Amazon, working lots.
Yeah.
So, by the time I'd get to the gym, I'd already be pretty tired. And I realized I needed a ton of sleep if I was going to be able to keep up my training load. And obviously, through this whole time, I wanted to keep training. I had a big trip coming up that year. I was going to go out west, go see a couple different places that I hadn't been before. And then in the grand scheme, I wanted to go to Waco Tanks that winter. So after the Christmas of working 5 12-hour night shifts a week.
Yeah.
So biggest thing was I realized I needed a lot of sleep. I needed to eat well. And that job forced me to have a lot of self-imposed constraints.
Yeah.
So what I did was I limited my climbing session no matter what time I got to the gym, which was typically around between 7 and 7:30, depending on traffic. I had to leave by 9 because I had to get home, go to sleep if I was going to be able to keep this going.
Yep.
So, man, yeah, most days it was typically about a 90-minute session. And, man, it doesn't take many bad sessions where you go in and you just kind of goof off or you don't pay attention or, you don't get to the point to where you try hard and then you just have to leave. Man, I'd get livid when that happened because I'd be like, I just wasted a day and I don't have extra days.
Yeah.
So at that time, I ran across a Dan John article that said, if something's worth doing, do it every day. If it's not worth doing, don't do it at all.
Good advice.
Yeah. So I wrote down a list. I was like, what to me is important? What do I need to do?
Donuts.
Donuts. Yeah. Send donuts. So I wrote down what I needed to do. Core was important. Finger strength was important. At this time, I still had really weak fingers. And we've talked about this.
Yep.
I used to be known for having really, really weak hands. like, which is crazy because now most people who've just met me recently, they're like, oh, you're just like the tiny guy who crimps a lot.
Right. Well, that's how I first heard of you, was that guy from Texas with really weak hands.
Yeah, exactly. Freakishly small hands from Texas. So yeah, my crimp strength was holding me back. And I actually wrote a little blog about this when I started hanging. So I decided I was going to hang board every single day that I went to the gym. I'd go in and I would just do 2 hangs. And I did a couple other things as well. Like, because my sessions were only 90 minutes, I would go in, do 30 minutes of really focused movement training, and then I would just try as hard as possible. Well, do my 2 hangs and then try as hard as possible and then cool down and leave. And by doing only 90 minutes and actually really paying attention to what I was doing, that was monumental for me.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, you know, the majority of our clients here are working people, you know, who have real lives, and a lot of them have families and responsibilities, you know, and you have limited time, and a lot of people believe they just don't have time, but it really doesn't take that much time.
No, and that's what
if you're doing the right things.
Yeah, that was probably the least I've ever trained. Because, I mean, I was typically training 4 days a week for like 90 minutes a day, something like that. So not much. But yeah, and so overall, that was huge for me. Definitely for finger strength. Like at that time, so before then, I had already climbed a couple V11s. But this was something we had talked about. I mean, I honestly believe if you travel enough, like, I think if you're a solid V8 climber, if you travel enough, you can go find a V10 that you can do.
Sure.
And so this
something
is
that really fits your strengths. Yeah.
Exactly. So I had just seen enough boulders, and I was able to find boulders that fit my style. Mm-hmm. But I was quickly running out of those boulders. And so, yeah, that was one of the biggest things for me, was one, learning that I didn't have to spend a ton of time in the gym, and I could still keep getting much stronger than I had when I was spending a lot of time.
Yep.
And also focusing on finger strength.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. And I think that's a good, like I said before, I think it's a good lesson for everybody. You don't have to be in the gym for 20 hours a week.
For sure.
You know, always bashing your head into the wall while you're there, which is what most people do, sadly. Okay, my number 2 kind of goes hand in hand with my number 1. And sort of with your number 2 as well. I learned to really boulder. What I had going on was I was a route climber. I had heard bouldering is how you gain power. So I would go to the bouldering gym and I would go bouldering. And I would do, 40 move boulder circuits, and I thought I was bouldering. I'm like, where the fuck is my power? It's not coming. And it finally occurred to me that I'm just climbing routes. I'm just not clipping.
Yeah.
So
just taking the rope off doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
It's not what makes you stronger.
Shockingly. Yeah. Dave McLeod didn't tell me that.
Bastard.
Or I blacked it out in Sharpie, one of the two. But so once I really started digging into the mindset of working on 2 or 3 hard moves, and really spending time deconstructing those moves and breaking down what was happening and really focusing on what I needed to do to make those moves happen, that's when my power started really shooting through the roof. It went way beyond what it was really fast. And that was really cool to see. But just bouldering doesn't do it if you're not focused on the right things.
Oh, yeah. What made you come across the briefer, more intense?
Honestly, watching some guys in the gym here. There are a couple guys, Aaron Schneider, Dan Rush, a couple of guys who are strong boulders in town. And it occurred to me that I never saw those guys do more than like 8 moves a night. They would just, it sounds crazy, but they would camp under hard moves and they would try them all night. And I might not see them stick a move for hours, hours a week. I mean, I might not see them stick anything. And And then I was finally like, well, they're getting really strong that way. And I had seen other strong people do that. You know, Ben Safdie, he's in Colorado now. He's from here, super strong kid.
Yeah, I met him at the Red.
Yeah, he used to do the same thing. You know, he would just camp under these super hard moves, and he might stick 1 move a night, 2 moves a night. And finally, I was like, okay, if it works for those guys, I'll see if it works for me. Because since I started this whole power company thing, I've always wanted to just be an experiment, keep experimenting with myself and see what works. So that's how it all started. And I thought, I'll try what they're trying and see if it works. I don't think it's going to work, seems crazy, but it worked.
Yeah. No,
Still working.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it helps too. Y'all have kind of a smaller gym.
Yeah.
Which I think is really beneficial. Man, some of these tall walls make it a little hard for that.
Yep.
That's one thing that's nice with TBA too. Shorter walls, so everything's really intense and powerful.
Yep. And actually at the gym that I started bouldering at, because at the time, Rockwest, where we climbed the last couple of days, didn't have bouldering, or they had only a tiny bit. But the bouldering at Climb Time, which is a really great bouldering gym, the walls are pretty big.
Oh,
so you can do long boulders in there. But I would never see these guys get to the top of hard boulders. They were hard boulders I couldn't even come close to touching, but they never, they just worked on a move or 2 at a time. So
nice.
So it's really more about them than being forced into it.
For sure.
I do like to be forced into it now, though. Like I like the engine room wall that's only a few moves long. My best training season to this point was on a wall that was 8 feet tall in my friend's basement. I trained 2 moves at a time on that wall the whole training season and came out stronger than I'd ever been. Made the biggest gains that season.
Nice.
So
yeah, I think Steve May said something similar, and I came across, I think it was from 2009. Sonny Trotter wrote an article and said that the strongest his fingers had ever been had been, I think, from 2002 or something like that. Him and a couple of buddies built a tiny little woody. Yeah,
and
they
the
just
wooden holds
rallied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something to be said for just a few difficult moves.
Yeah, I mean, that's what all the Wyoming dudes did back in the day. They just had these little woodies and, super short, super steep, tons of power. So
yeah, if it worked for them, I mean.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break.
Word.
Break.
What's up, everybody? Chris here. Sorry to interrupt. I'll keep this brief. Since this podcast thing became officially official, I've gotten a bunch of messages from you guys asking how you can help out and make sure that it keeps going. Well, now we've got a way. Our new Patreon page, which you can find at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast, is set up so that you can become patrons of the podcast. We want to keep this thing sponsor free. We want to keep it mostly commercial free, except for our own commercials, like this one, of course. So the way it's set up is that you can donate monthly, $1 a month, $5 a month, all the way up to $25 a month, and you get rewards in return for that. For instance, for the $5 a month, you get our Google Voice number, which means you can call, leave us a voicemail message, and we'll play it on the podcast and try to answer any questions that you have. So we're trying to give back to you guys, and again, trying to keep this thing sponsor free. So help us out. Patreon.com/powercompanypodcast, or you can go to powercompanyclimbing.com and click on the podcast tab. Thanks a lot. Back to the show. Okay, we have returned. How about you give me your number 3?
All right. My number 3 is more recent and a little more specific than the other ones. So my number 3 is I started practicing climbing with a higher level of tension. And to do this was inspired after I read Pavel Tsatsoulin's book. I think it was Power to the People. I read Power to People and Naked Warrior both back to back, so I can't remember which ones these are actually from.
I don't even want to think of Pavel and the Naked Warrior term at the same time.
That was body weight training.
Yeah, so, I just don't want to think about it.
That's fair.
We need another title for that.
And Josh Rucci, he wrote a little article that had to do with this as well. But
yep, yeah, good article.
Using intra-abdominal pressure and irradiation.
Yep.
And both for me have been monumental, and it's something that I'm still practicing a lot. And it's hard to explain. Intra-abdominal pressure is creating pressure using breath and kind of holding your breath for very extreme, difficult moves. And then irradiation is purposefully tightening specific muscles,
Right.
to help make everything else fire harder.
Right.
And so by doing those two combined, I realized I could try single moves at a much, much higher level than I've ever been able to before. Mm-hmm. And it's been crazy. So I've been practicing it for about a year now. And it's something that I still, I don't know, I feel like I'm probably still only at like 30% of what's even acceptable for it. But it's wild. I mean, I've come across moves that I cannot do without creating this type of pressure or this type of tension. But if I use the tension, I've never missed them.
Yeah. Yeah, I can believe that. You know, you've kind of turned me on to these concepts, and I've been toying with them a little bit. I am not nearly as far down the road as you are. But as I've started to dig into it, I've started to notice it more in other people. The lack of it and who's good at it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like when we were in So Ill, there was a tension move that you did, and it's not even a tension move. I can't call it that. You were just using your feet and your core in a way that I couldn't do. And it didn't look like a hard move. It didn't seem like a hard move. It didn't seem like it should be a hard move. But I could not keep my foot on the hold. And it was really interesting watching how you worked through it and how you were able to pick apart why I wasn't able to do it. You know, and I think that's a hugely important part of climbing that a lot of people just don't pay that much attention to.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know, and it's tough because it's like for me now, it's still it takes such a conscious effort.
Yeah,
like it's not intuitive. It doesn't happen on its own yet, and I haven't been able to make it happen on its own yet. So I can really only do it for a handful of moves, like typically one, maybe two moves in a boulder. Otherwise, it just takes so much thought that I can't actually make it happen well, at least not at a high level.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, it's weird to train and practice, but yeah, you see some people like Daniel Woods, man, that guy can just create so much tension.
Yep. He's really good at it. I think Angie is really good at it. Mm-hmm. You know, I've recognized her level of tension for years because I've climbed with her a fair amount, and there are moves where, and I've said this before, but there are moves where I thought I can't span that reach, you know, from toe to hand. I can't reach that without my foot cutting. And then Angie does it and keeps her foot on, and she's several inches shorter than I am. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, why is this even possible? And how does she just stiffen up that way? Mm-hmm. You know, and I think of myself as having a strong core. And I think that's one of the mistakes that people make is and I see this in the gym all the damn time, people, their feet cut and they go, I need to do some core work. And I don't think it's that their core isn't strong enough. I think it's that they don't know how to use it effectively.
Yeah.
So,
no, for sure.
Any thoughts on how people can, you know, work on these things themselves? Because I really do think this is a huge issue, especially that, you know, higher end climbers can use, and by higher end I mean, you know, 512 and above or V5 and above can start to really think about that'll really help their climbing out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's good to try and break it down to its most simple form. So as far as creating tension or creating that kind of, we'll just use tension. You know, a drill we use that we call rooting. So learning how to drive, start by learning how to drive through your low arm. So if you're doing a big move.
You're giving away the secrets, man.
I know.
You're giving away the shit.
We're going to have to charge for this. So when you're doing a big move, let's say you're reaching with your left hand, so learning how to drive through the entire move with your right arm, so that low arm that's still on the wall. And it, you know, I say this now and it sounds obvious, like of course, and most people think they do this, but until you really spend the time and practice, like you don't realize how much extra strength and how much control you can get out of really focusing on it. So for me, with drills like this, man, I love to pull it back. I'll do it for, kind of in my warm up. So boulders that are still like fairly difficult, but not so hard that I don't have the extra time to think about what I'm doing.
Yep.
Yeah. Practice driving with your arms, with your legs, and then slowly start adding, trying to create, extra tension through your core, through your lats, through just your legs, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the way I like to do it. Like start with, do it on really easy boulders, and then slowly build till you're on harder boulders. So you're kind of like leveling up as you go. And then if you want to try it on hard moves, just do one move at a time. So it's nothing else there's nothing else you have to think about.
Yep. And I think when you're practicing it, create far more tension than you think you need.
Oh, for sure.
Just to really learn what it feels like and learn what that tension does, and learn how much tension you can create.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's big.
It's funny. I don't know about you, but the first time I started practicing this, I realized I could only do these drills twice a week.
Oh yeah, they're hard.
Yeah, I'd get destroyed. Like the next day, I could not create any tension throughout my entire body. Like I'd just be wrecked. So I started having to have like really slow high tension days and then like fast power days, because I realized I could still climb powerfully, but I just couldn't have that high level of tension.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. I mean, I could be practicing this tension on, V5, V6, V7 boulders, like, and it would just destroy me.
Yeah. You feel like you got, you did some P90X bullshit or something.
Yeah, but
that's
it works.
what it feels like, but you're actually doing something specific to your climbing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Can we talk a second about irradiation? Because I think that's an important concept that we sort of just glossed over.
Yeah.
Let's explain it to people a little bit.
For sure. You want to start or?
Well, I think I heard a Pavel explain it like the way I best understood it, I think, was Pavel. And he talked about making a fist, and if you make a fist, you can only make so tight a fist before you start squeezing with your forearm and tightening your forearm. And then if you try to make the fist tighter, you end up tightening your bicep, and you go tighter, and then your shoulder is tensed.
And before you know, your entire like pec and back and everything is all engaged.
Exactly. And those muscles don't have anything to do with your fist. But by the concept of irradiation is that if you tighten the surrounding muscles, then it thereby adds more tension to what your target
it's like a
is.
Neurological boost, basically, is how it's explained. But that's the exact example he uses. Make a fist. He's like, make a fist, now make it harder, squeeze until you can't squeeze any harder, and you'll feel that entire side of your body.
Yep.
Just completely activated. And so it's that same idea, and he uses four main things to focus on for activating irradiation, and that's your core or whole midsection, your glutes, your lats, and your grip. Those four things act as amplifiers for the rest of your body.
Yep. So what we're saying as far as climbing goes is, if you've got a toe way out to the left and you're trying to apply tension to that toe so that you can make a move, you don't just need to flex your calf harder. You need to squeeze your ass. You need to, squeeze the hand that's going to stay on the wall. Squeeze that grip harder. You need to squeeze your lats, squeeze your core, get everything tight, and then that toe will work that much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which obviously that's a lot of things to think about.
It's a lot of things to think about, and that's why you do it on the easy boulders.
Yeah. Until it starts becoming natural.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and I'm really loving those drills, actually, and that's at all of these workshops I've done. Every single time somebody asks me, "What are you working on? Like, what are you trying to make better?" Because that's the question I ask to everyone when they come off the wall. Like, what can we make better? And what can we improve? So they all want to know what I'm trying to improve, and I tell them all, since Nate and I have been on the road, I've been really watching Nate climb, because he climbs with a much higher level of tension than I do. I try to relax as much as possible. You're much better at applying tension when it's required. And it takes me 4 or 5 tries to realize, I need to apply a little more tension there, because I'm trying to Red River Relax through the whole thing, So I'm trying to get better at learning when to use that tension and how to apply that tension and what that means. So
nice. All right, so what's your
my number three, my final? This one's really kind of broad, but I think it's super important. I started paying more attention to the outside factors, meaning partners, schedule, pre-trip preparation, all those things that aren't training. You can train your ass off. You can train harder than anybody in your gym, in your state, on the planet. But if you don't schedule right, or have the right partners, or have the right goals when you get outside, it all means nothing.
Oh, for sure.
And it's really easy as a busy person who has a life, a family, and responsibilities to just go, oh, I don't have time this weekend, or I was going to, but it's really easy to do that. So I really spent a season zeroing in on, I need to figure these things out. I need to have backup partners and backup partners and backup partners. I need to have it covered no matter what happens. I need to have my work schedule totally figured out. I need to have the schedule of the day totally figured out. I need to have the schedule of my project totally figured out. Like, what's my goal today on this route, and make sure all those things happen the way they're supposed to happen. And, that made a huge difference. I actually wrote into my training plan, this was written on paper, that I had to stay at Miguel's every weekend and be the last person to bed. Not because I didn't want to sleep, but because I needed to be more integrated into the sport climbing community, because I was an old school traddy and I could have stayed that way, this grumpy old dude, but I needed to be more integrated so that I had backup partners. So that if my partners bailed, I could drive to Miguel's and be guaranteed a partner. And it worked.
Nice.
So,
do you feel like focusing on those factors, or let's rephrase that. So by trying to improve those factors, do you think it made you more stressed out when they worked poorly?
I don't think so. I think I got much better at not giving myself excuses. I think before I really focused on these factors, if something went wrong, I could just bail out. Like, oh, that's just what happens. I'm a busy guy. I've got a job and all these hobbies and a daughter and all this other bullshit that were just fucking excuses. Because none of those things suffered at all. In fact, they got better once I scheduled things and made sure that everything was going to be working. This concerted effort across the whole spectrum. So I don't think it stressed me out more at all. I think I was just able to roll with the punches quite a bit better without giving excuses.
What's your favorite excuse now?
Oh shit, there's a lot of them. My shoulder, definitely, that's my favorite excuse now.
That's a good go-to. The surgery helps that.
Yeah. And I try to use the excuse, like, oh my, that my shoulder's scared of that move. But when I do use the excuse, I can go, okay, is that valid? If it's not actually dangerous, I'm going to give it a few more tries and see how it feels. So I think by voicing it, then I get to analyze it a little bit and I try to voice all my excuses. I try not to just give myself an excuse inside my head, because if I voice it, then I have to really look at it and see, am I for real?
Did I just say that?
Or am I just, am I just bullshit? So
you get to the crag, start preloading your excuses, look around, see who's there, maybe start doing some ridiculous TheraBand exercises.
I do those anyway.
Yeah.
What's your favorite excuse?
Oh, I haven't had enough donuts today. That's a good one.
Or I've had too many donuts today.
Or no, that's never happened. My palms are too long. That's probably the issue.
Nate just held his hand up, and he does have an abnormally long palm. It's really kind of freaky.
I've got these tiny raccoon fingers and
He
just these
does.
like awkward
Oh,
paddle.
that is what it looks like. It looks like a
palms.
raccoon hand.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna
It's so fucking weird.
unzip your pack and walk away with a granola bar.
So fucking
They're
weird.
creepy.
Okay.
Raccoons, not my hands.
Raccoons are creepy?
Yeah,
No, your hands are creepy.
no, they're not.
Little self-conscious there.
Of course not. I think it's over. I think we're done with this podcast now.
Cut it off now. We don't tweet. We scream like eagles. No, I think those are all really good things, and I think we could have made a top 40 list, because I've definitely learned a lot that's made big dents in my climbing. Not dents, I guess, but dents is the wrong word, but big dents in my weaknesses.
Yeah.
So,
And I feel like in a lot of these too, you always end up coming back to eventually.
oh yeah, and I think it cycles. Like, I have to be honest with myself again about what my weaknesses are. Every season I have to go, okay, what is it I need to work on? Does it matter that I'm better at these people, at that? No, it doesn't really, because there's always Jimmy Webb and Daniel Woods and Angie Payne and Alex Magos, who are always going to be better at me than just about everything. So, except for rapping, because Daniel Woods can't rap, let's be honest here. But they're always gonna climb better than I do, and I have to be honest with myself and not be the big fish in the little pond. And I think that's a constant cycle. I think all these things you have to cycle back through. 'Cause
Yeah.
eventually your strengths are your weaknesses, once you make all your weaknesses your strengths.
I think that's
Did I say that right?
yeah.
I think I said, I'll have to listen back to that. Man, I might cut that part out.
All right, yeah.
But yeah, cool. Are we done? We're done.
I think so.
Shit, that's 3 things. This went fast. We should do like 4 more of these tonight.
More coffee.
More. Oh God, I don't need more coffee. All right, we will see you guys later. We don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, 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 power, power, this time the build, power, this time to build, power, this time to build, power. This time to build 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 power. This time to build. 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 This time to build.